Welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. Today is Wednesday. Believe it or not, it's September the 1st, 2021. Our calling number is 563-999-3581 and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Welcome, Michael.
Yay, it's our show. And we love to do it. So thank you for the opportunity to lending us your ears so that we could have this conversation. And we'd also like to borrow your voice because this is definitely meant to be a conversation instead of a monologue. So we're honored that you're here, and we feel blessed to get to engage, to learn from you, to teach with you, to bring forward these ancient healing principles that have been lost through purpose or time. I'm not sure which. Whatever it is, it's time for restoration of the understanding of how this world works and our place in it. It's time for remembering who we are, to reconnect to the truth of who we are. The core of our work is first century Aramaic forgiveness, and the title of my book is Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And what you can do about it. So I'm going to just start right there with page, let's see, we're up to page 105 in the book. And if you don't have the book and you'd like to follow along with us, you can pick up a copy of it on Amazon or on eBay used. It's out of print, so we don't have new books to sell you, unfortunately, but you can also go to our website, whyagain.org, and you can pick up a copy of it there free. You can download it. English, German, Russian, Spanish. The Swedish copy is there, Danish. There's some parts of it in Thai. I'm not even sure. Farsi. What other languages are there? And if you happen to speak a language that we don't have the book translated in and would like to do the service of making the book available to your fellow native language speakers, whatever that language is, and would like to translate it, we'd love to get you a copy of it and have you translated into whatever language you speak. And we'll put it online. We'll acknowledge you for translating it, and we'll make it available free so that we can fulfill our commitment to take this work to the best of our ability to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. Page 105, we're working on the topic, the body has a mind of its own. And we want to put forward the understanding that what we generally call a mind really isn't the mind at all. It's more like a computer function. You know, if I say, don't think about the color of your car, most people would respond with, well, here I am now thinking about the color of my car. And my offering is, no, in response to what I said, you're not thinking about the color of your car. The mind works, or what we call the mind, works by a law called the law of resonance, law of energy exchange. And so when I speak those words, it resonates information in you, and the mind simply responds with whatever's there. Not thinking at all, but just cycling information. It's no more thinking than, you know, when you push a key on a computer, the computer's thinking. So when we really awaken to that process of thinking, that really is the ability to wake up to who we are as operators of our minds and to have the ability to introduce information to this database, this storage system called the body-mind unit, multi-generational information storage system that in many cases simply runs people's lives. We're here to put an end to that thing running your life. Because if it runs your life, then the past is running your life because everything that's stored in the thing is from the past. And people live in repeated, why is this happening to me again? Resonated information from the past, and they think they're actually alive. There's no life in that. It's just repeat, repeat, repeat. We call it the replicate mind. And it's time for us to stop living in the replicate mind and really starting to change things. So we're having this conversation with this character, Richard, this recalcitrant kind of guy who doesn't really want to hear anything that we're talking about. And we're looking at the idea that when things resonate, people tend to be run by whatever is in the mind, in the so-called mind, being resonated. And we're at the stage where we're talking about how the culture at large, individuals, media, et cetera, have a responsibility for integrity, because our young people tend to simply play out whatever it is that they've lived. And now for the thought to Rich. I used to think that parents who guarded carefully I guess it's actually Richard here that's saying to me, I used to think that parents who guarded carefully what their children did and with whom their children had contact were overprotective. Perhaps they understood the potential contribution the community makes in building their child's reality structure. And in this work, we define reality not as what is. Reality is a construct in the human so-called mind. Most people's realities are simply reflections of content from the past. So we have the actualities in life, what actually happened, and then we have the realities. And, for any given actuality, of course, you can have 1,000 different realities. Some of those realities are based in truth, and they'll be the ones that are connected to love. And some of those realities are based in total, complete fraud, and they're the ones connected to hostility and fear. What you know is whenever the mind is resonating some form of hostility or fear, that's a signal that the mind is using corrupt data and therefore is stuck in falsehood. So it goes on to say, this explains a lot about why children who have no contact with a healthy community, be it a school or a neighborhood, get into trouble. I'm going to do something about delivering what I've learned here today to children, schools, parents, and teachers, Michael. He sounded pretty determined. We will be delighted to support your effort in any way we can, Richard. Many people who study this work become teachers of it. We invite anyone who feels it is their purpose to teach these tools to do so and to assist us in fulfilling our family's commitment to making these tools available to every mind on the planet. Let's look at the next phase of this understanding, the file folder effect. The words can be used to trigger files and realities and, quote-unquote, hook them together, so to speak. How long does it take to key realities together so they fire in concert with each other? Well, don't think about a purple alligator. Silly example, but if I see you in a week, a month, or a year and say, don't think about a purple, what will your mind fill with, the blank with? Alligator, of course, but probably won't even remember that a year from now, Richard chided. Well, that may be true, but that illustrates the point. One of the things that puts an event into long-term memory is emotion. Repetition will drive the energy even deeper into the mind. Let's look at an all-too-typical example. Imagine, over the first decade or two of life, a young boy is taught, through being yelled at and punished, the conflicting thoughts that sex is dirty and he should save it for the one he loves. Considering the file folder effect, what results do you expect you'd see from those links in the mind? Sounds like fertile ground for insanity, Richard blurts out. And yeah, there is so much insanity in our culture. And this file folder effect is such an important thing to understand and recognize, and to really become aware, truly conscious of, and remove links to things in the mind that are not accurate or true. And one of the ways that decency and goodness is destroyed in a person's mind is by linking it up to hostility and fear. And so this file folder effect in this so-called body's mind is an important key to understand we're offering. And so, Miss Jeannie, we are at about the 10-minute point, so that means we've got about 50 minutes left for conversation. Do you have anybody out there with a hand up in the phone queue or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is quiet. Nobody has a hand up, so come on, press 1.
So if you're out there in listener land, again, this is designed to be a dialogue, and we'd love to hear your voice. What's on your mind? How can we support you? I'm listening. And I can't imagine we don't have anybody out there with something to say, something to offer, something to question, something you need support with. Our objective in having this radio show is to have an interaction with you, is to hear from you. What's your experience of the tools? What's fitting in your life? What isn't fitting in your life? How can we make more sense of these tools for you? By the way, one of the things we're working on, and we'll have it complete, Jeannie keeps on me about it because I haven't touched it yet, but we're working on creating a flyer for the Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing workshop that we'll be doing in October. We're going to begin to do a Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing workshop once each month. And on the Wednesday following the Saturday Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing workshop, we'll do a Zoom conversation based on the experience from the Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing Saturday, and entertain questions and look at specifics of that tool of Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing. So if you're not on our mailing list, then you can go to our website, whyagain.org. And Jeannie, I'm not familiar with just where people sign up now on the new website. I know you've done a major overhaul and redesign that makes things more accessible. And I know that it used to be at the top in the center, but where is the link now if people want to sign up for our mailing list?
It's down at the bottom. So if you scroll all the way down, there's the button for supporting the work and donating, and then beside of it you'll see the glowing heart like on the app, and it says join our mailing list. And you can always type on the little search bar and type in join or mailing list, and it should bring up the link. Yeah, it does. It pops it right up, so you can just put in join or mailing list, and it'll pop right up there for you.
Cool. And as far as our mailing list goes, we're not going to spam you with all kinds of junk. We're not going to share it with anybody. It's only used for things related to this work, to keep you posted on any kind of special offers or new workshops coming up, information like that. So it's something you'll only hear from us once every, oftentimes only every month or two, or maybe a little more often, but we keep that to a minimum just to keep you posted on what's happening.
And I would,
so I'm all ears. Go ahead, sweetie.
I got a text yesterday from the lady who helps me with the website. It's also, on her server that we have it hosted and everything. And I just ask everybody to hold the space for her and her family. Her mother has lymphoma, lymph cancer, and is starting her first chemo treatment. And so Susan's down at her mom's house helping to take care of her. So just hold the space for that whole family as they're going through this, moving through the motions.
So, Susan, we hold you in our hearts. We extend our love to you and your mom, Daniel. That can be a difficult time. So I'm going to just get quiet and listen and see if there's somebody out there who's willing to push one and share with us what's on their minds. Maybe we just do a silent meditation, Jeannie.
For anybody who does meditation, and we've probably mentioned this before, and I'll put a link to it in the notes for today, but Michael and I have come across some music by Krishnadas.
Krishnadas?
Is that his name?
Yes.
I was bringing it up here. And the music is mostly Hindi. He studied in India, and it's just absolutely beautiful. We don't understand the words. Sometimes we'll look up songs and say English translation just to see, what it is, what it's really saying. But just the tone of it and the music and his voice, it's just a wonderful setting to go into a meditation. Especially the song Show Me Love.
I want to know what love is.
Yeah, the title of it's actually Show Me Love, but yes, It's just awesome. So somebody press 1. We have 41 minutes.
Let's have a conversation. What's on your mind? I was talking to a physician yesterday who's picked up on the work we've done around the energy field work and looking at the fact that the bony structure, there's a theory at least that I came up with a couple of decades ago that the bony structure of the so-called body is actually a self-adjusting antenna, an antenna that's continuously in motion, and as it moves, when it moves through its proper range of motion, from a physics point of view, the shape of an antenna determines the frequencies it receives. So, if you've got a TV antenna, let's say you're up in Buffalo, New York, and you've got a TV antenna that tunes to, say, channel 2 up there, channel 4, and then you bring that TV antenna down here and put it on your house, and you've got a channel 2 and a channel 4. Not going to get that station very well because the shape of the antenna, the frequency being different of the station in New York than the one here, let's say in Virginia for channel 2 and channel 4. You're not going to get very good reception. And so somebody goes up on the roof and turns the antenna backward or bends all of the arms of the antenna, you're not going to get much of an energetic exchange between the signal that's moving through the air and the antenna. Well, we live in this energy field. If you go back to the ancient scriptures, the Creator, love, says things like, "In me you live, move, and have your being." Now, what that means when you tie into that law of resonance we've been talking about with the idea that the body has a mind of its own, is that if our energy system is made in the image and likeness of, that is a resonating frequency with the Creator, is made of that stuff called love, and if we're moving through, they tell us, although we look and we say, oh, the Earth is standing still. Well, obviously it's not. We make it all the way around the sun, once a year. And that's a pretty extensive trip. How fast do you need to be moving? Well, about 7,000 miles an hour. Shows you how much of an illusion the mind can create, because we have this illusion we're pretty much standing still. But we're moving through this energy. We, made of the stuff called love, are moving through this energy field called love. And if we are aligned with that, then there is induced within our structure a flow of energy. And the flow of energy that's induced within our structure is the flow of love. Motion, if we have resonating energy fields, creates energy movement. You go out and you get in your car and, there's nothing moving in your car. You turn a key, and because you have a battery supplying power to a motor, begins the turning of your starter. How does that happen? Well, electricity stored in the battery flows through a piece of wire. Do you know what happens when electricity flows through a piece of wire? Well, what occurs is that a standing wave, an energy field, is set up around that piece of wire. Now, if you have another piece of wire that is attuned with the right number of coils or right number of turns in it to that energy that's moving through that first piece of wire, there's going to be a magnetic field set up, and all of a sudden, because electricity is flowing through this coil of wire, your starter is going to begin to turn. When it begins to turn, if you remember the old-time movies, you'd watch somebody get out there with a hand crank, and they had to start the car with a hand crank. Well, somebody came up with the idea of making an electric starter. Otherwise, you'd still be out there cranking your car to get it started. And feel moving in our physiology, which would be akin to a motor moving or turning within a car, we can feel the energetic patterns of whatever we've stored there. What we're offering with this work is that on an energetic basis, if there's something moving in you that you say, I don't like this, the reason it's moving is because it's there, and the reason you don't like it is because it doesn't belong there. Rage and hatred and fear and guilt are energetic patterns, energetic presences that do not belong in physiology. And what we uncovered many years ago, and I offer a huge shout out to a dear friend who's passed now, Dan McDougall, who did much of the original work on the Aramaic language, who acquired initially the Kabbalah manuscript that we work from, and really tapped into this whole idea of how this energy system works from the first century Aramaic perspective. We spent a lot of time working and refining our understanding of that and come up with a specific step-by-step technology for how, if there's an energetic pattern moving in you that you don't like, you can remove it. The technology in the first century Aramaic language was called forgiveness. If you're not using that technology, we have a full explanation of it on our website. It's available to you free. We'd be delighted if you jump on the website, whyagain.org, click up in the upper left-hand corner where the button says Start Here, and just start clicking links. It'll walk you through an understanding through the building of the brain cells. You know, if you didn't know how a generator or an alternator works, notice that now when I say, well, what generates electricity, you've got brain cells for that. You've got, you know, if you've never heard of such a thing before, you've got the beginning of the understanding of how a starter works, how a motor works, how a generator works. It's called building brain cells. The main brain cells we want to support being available to everyone is the brain cells for how forgiveness works. And forgiveness is a tool with which, if there's content, if there are energetic patterns stored within your physiology, you know, it's kind of like your cells are like a storage battery. The battery stores the energy that starts your car. Your cells store mind energy. In fact, if you go to the opening words in the book of John in the New Testament, where we're told it's all about religion, it doesn't say, as the Greeks tell us, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh, and they equate that word with a person. What that text actually says is, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. This is the beginning of a huge, huge piece of understanding. That literally, when we think of thought, we have the energetic pattern that initiates dynamics that will ultimately become part of your flesh, part of your physiology. And if things that were never designed for a structure that's made to incarnate love are resonant within your structure, then the application of forgiveness, the understanding of how these tools work, and the application of forgiveness is about how to remove those energetic patterns that, you know, when they move, people are just miserable. A lot of people think, well, life is miserable. And they think that life is miserable because structured within their structure, stored within their cellular structure, is misery. But life isn't miserable. Life is an awesome, sweet, profound opportunity to experience ourselves as human beings, as the active presence of love. And if our physiology is generating something other than the presence of love, it's because there have been energetic patterns put into the structure that don't belong there. Now, it's interesting, in the ancient Aramaic language, when it's described, they had a word that described putting energetic patterns within human physiology that didn't belong within human physiology. And the word was sin. It's got nothing to do with what the Greeks have taught us about evil and bad and wrong, all of that sort of stuff. The word sin in Aramaic is simply an archery term. And when you fired at the target, if you missed the bullseye, the scorekeeper would inform you by utilizing the word sin. You were off the mark. Now, I know there are all kinds of implications and insane ideas that have been sown within our minds about this idea of sin. And probably one of the most tragic ones that has destroyed so many lives down through the ages is that people have personalized that word and convinced themselves and others that that's a word that describes who they are. So my offering is, if you bought into the fraud or the lie that sin in some way implies something about you, then you have been defrauded by someone who either is in the business of fraud or just is ignorant and doesn't know any better. So all that sin is a word that informs us about how this energy system is operating. And when it's operating on an energy that's off the mark, it's time to wake up. It's time to realize who we are and shift out of the energetic patterns that are inhuman. And we've got so much of that in the world today. You look at the rage and the fear. You look at the bizarre implications of the kinds of things that are going on in our world today. You say, how is it possible that we have degraded so far from the truth of being love, of being beings created in the image and likeness of love? How did we get so far away? Well, there's this word sophistry, and it's interesting because if you talk to people in this culture, oftentimes today they'll tell you the word sophist has something to do with wisdom. And that's a twist that's happened that turns backward this idea of sophistry. If you go back into your Greek history, you find that the sophists were a group of Greek philosophers who, in essence, charged big bucks to the wealthy to go around and teach their children how to lie, and lie in such a subtle way that the lies appeared to be true. An example of that, the sophistry just is so rampant in the world today. I just posted an article on nutrition a few days ago, and a very basic sophistry would be, somebody who went to the Madison Avenue advertising agency, created this white pasty stuff that they called bread. The farmers grew wheat in their fields, and today is oftentimes wheat grown in fields before they ever plant the seed in the soil that's meant to be vital and alive with organisms and life. They poured 10 gallons per acre of a toxic poison called glyphosate on that acre of land. So they made sure that everything was absolutely wiped out, dead, nothing alive in the soil at all. Then they planted seeds that had been manipulated in their energetic patterns so that they could withstand the glyphosate. They grew the wheat, and then once the wheat grew, they sprayed it with more glyphosate, more poison, in order to cause it to dry prematurely. And then they learned how to mill that wheat, how to grind that wheat and remove from it everything that had nutrition in it. All of the wheat germ, all of the vitamin E, all of the vitamin C, all of the vitamins they removed from that grain of wheat, and they went out and made a profit selling it to the pig farmers. The pig farmers know you need nutrition to keep your pigs healthy. They don't go to doctors in the fancy hospitals in the cities that tell them nutrition's got nothing to do with the state of your health or disease. They know that if they don't feed their pigs right, their pigs will be sick. Their pigs will not reproduce. Their pigs will not last very long, and their vet bills will be enormous. So the sophists found out how to take all the nutrition out of the wheat and sell it to the pig farmer. And then they hired Madison Avenue to advertise how this white poison leftover paste that they turned into a thing they called white bread, they got the advertisers to tell humans, to brainwash humans into believing this was food. Now, I dare you, if I were to go into restaurants in this city, and I don't know how many thousand restaurants there are, I would be hard-pressed to find one piece of bread. If I wanted to go in and have a sandwich or have a burger or whatever, I would be hard-pressed to find one slice of bread that had one scintilla of natural nutrition in it. That would be a challenge to do. And isn't it interesting? I mean, how deep is the sophistry that literally throughout this whole city, throughout this whole country, I mean, there are places you can go to health food stores. You can go to some places where you'll actually find some measure of nutrition in a loaf of bread. But otherwise, I mean, literally, you go to virtually any restaurant in town and you have to ask the question, do you have any food that actually has nutrition in it, that hasn't been adulterated? That's sophistry. And that sophistry applies in arena after arena after arena and after arena. The same principle applies in so many churches where they take the teachings of this man, Yeshua, who said, there is a work to be done, and here's how you do forgiveness. And those people will tell you, oh, there's nothing you can do. You're a hopeless, helpless, quote-unquote sinner, and there's nothing you can do. We'll just let somebody else do it for you. And so people who could be doing something about changing their lives sit back and go, oh, somebody's going to fix it for me. Somebody's going to save me. And they do nothing but buy whatever they've been sold. And they've been sold a sick bill of goods that's fraught with lies and sophistry. This work is about cleaning up the mind so that one has the brain cells for how life really works. And, in this case, what nutrition actually looks like, what food actually looks like and tastes like. You walk into most restaurants and the food has such a sophisticated taste. That is, it's filled with sugar and then salt, toxic chemicals, preservatives, but it's overridden. The tastes are fooled. Again, it's sophistry. The taste buds are fooled into thinking this is food. And people wonder why they're dying of horrific diseases, and then they go to doctors who present them with treatment. And virtually every treatment that most doctors have are called drugs. And drugs, you'll notice each drug, if you read the insert on the package, each drug introduces into a person's body the potential for and the actuality of many, many diseases. I mean, just read the insert on the package. Why in the name of healing would you introduce something that brings into the structure disease after disease after disease after disease after disease? Why? Because just like the empty white bread, the guy who milled the bread and sold the nutrition to the pig farmer and then sold the leftover white poison to the baker, they made their money twice. And then when people are sick, they're right there to milk their pockets. That whole game is a game of sophistry. And it's time for us to wake up to how we've been tricked and to begin to function truly as a being with faculties that can tell a genuine energetic pattern from a false one, truly as the active presence of love. An important skill in doing that is to remove or forgive everything in the structure that is false and does not belong within the structure. And in essence, that's what we're here to deliver, is the tools for doing that. Again, the primary tool is a tool of removal, the tool of forgiveness. the tool that removes the lies, the frauds, the hostility, and fear from this physiological system so that we can go back to functioning as who we truly are. And that should arouse some thoughts for somebody who's going to put their hand up and say, well, Michael, what about, or tell me more about, or how does that work? How can we support you? What's on your mind? If you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581, 563-999-3581. If you call that number, if you're listening on a station that doesn't link into our control panel, so we can see that you're there, call that number, you'll be listening to the show, and then if you push 1 through the magic of technology, signal will come up in Jean's control panel, and she'll know you want to speak to us and introduce us by your area code. So how can we support you? What's on your mind? Miss Jeannie, anything happening in the chat room? Anybody in the phone queue with a hand up?
No, it is silent out here.
All is quiet, eh? Well, I guess all that we need to say for today has been said then. I know we have our granddaughter here today, and we're going to head out and go see the Paw Patrol movie with her today. So we're going to take her out and have some playtime. And so if nobody else has any thoughts or questions for us, I'm ready to close the show out and get prepared to take Ari Rain to see the Paw Patrol. What do you think, sweetie?
Well, I was hoping somebody would just press 1, but it looks like the switchboard's going to stay quiet.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you all for the time you spend with us, and it would be wonderful if you carried a little notebook or had a little program in your phone when you have questions that you make a note of them so that when the showtime comes around, you've got that handy and can pop in and be part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Other than that, we'll just close the show out and say thank you for joining us and have the best year out of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings. Bye-bye.